If we could light the fire under any person who's trying to achieve their very best, that's what we want to see. You can do it. If you want to do it, you can do it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Legacy Podcast. I'm your host, Raisa Afrida. Some leaders make history by being the first. Others make history by making sure they're not the last. Today's guest is Deb Bergeson, a true trailblazer in sport, career, and leadership. Before her career in fire service, Deb spent a decade competing internationally in luge and became a 6-time national champion. She later joined the Calgary Fire Department in 1998 as the third woman firefighter ever hired by the organization. Over the years, Deb served on the frontlines, worked her way through the ranks, became Calgary's first women fire captain, and later moved into senior leadership. Her work has focused not only on operational excellence, but also on culture, inclusion, mentorship, workplace equity, and creating systems where people feel respected, supported, and able to belong. Deb has completed a Master of Arts in Leadership with her thesis focused on inclusion and belonging in the fire service. Deb, welcome to the Legacy Podcast. How are you today?
Super great. Thanks. It's a great honor to be here. I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much, Deb, for making time for us. Today, we're very excited to hear about your story, about your journey, leadership, and legacy. But first, for people meeting you for the first time, who is Deb Bergeson beyond the titles and the accomplishments?
Thank you for that question. I'm just Deb. I grew up in outside of a small village in Alberta, and worked really hard in our family farming operation. And I was just taught the values of being a good person and a hard worker. And that's just what I've carried forward. I think each and every day of my life is to be a good person, a hard worker. And of course, I love to achieve.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so happy to hear that, you have been taking, I would say, leadership since childhood, because farming is not that easy.
That's right. It's not easy. And yet, I think in whatever we do, we can weave kindness and compassion into our daily approaches. And so that's been really important to me. And if people described me, I would hope that they would describe me as a nice person who makes them comfortable and helps them believe in themselves.
That's absolutely inspiring. No wonder why you're here today. Well, you started as an international luge athlete before entering the fire service. What did sport teach you about discipline, I would say pressure, and resilience?
Sport. I'd always been an athlete, but I knew, or I thought I knew, the harder you worked, the more you would achieve. Sport taught me that discipline and working harder than anyone else would help you achieve. But there are some elements that you just can't control. So not only did I find out more about self-discipline and being stronger and being faster and the rewards of that work, but I also found out that you don't get to map your journey. Sport taught me camaraderie. It taught me the value of having support. And it's certainly in the sport of luge, where it's nothing but a very thin rubber suit between you and a concrete wall. It taught me that it's not just about strength. Sometimes it's about luck.
Wow. I know that we have met at another event where you were the guest speaker, and I was so mesmerized by your story. And at that point, you were talking about how very few female athletes were there during your time. and, some of the challenges that time, because you were a 6-time national champion. And I was surprised. I'm like, why aren't you in the Olympic? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, one of, I think the things that I confronted during that time, not only luck and hard work, but certainly there are politics and structures. And at that time, we had a structure in our sporting organization that seemed very male dominated. I could see the male athletes being the ones who were being supported. And certainly that attitude came from those who made decisions. During the time that I was a 6-time national champion and the 10 years that I had on the national team, those times when I was probably the best I could be at the sport, no women were taken from Canada to the Olympic Games in the sport of luge.
Wow. And what was the year? Okay, if you can remind us for that.
I finished my career in the year 2000. So that would have been
very recently.
Right. From 94 to 2000. During those Olympics, no women went to the Games.
Wow. We're not talking about like the 50s and 60s. It's just like 25 years ago or 26 years ago.
Yeah. And it was tough to see, especially after all of that hard work and knowing that I was doing that well on the international circuit, typically ranked 11th, 12th in the world. It was difficult to know that this is the best the country had, was Deb Bergeson and my colleagues who were right there with me and to not give the opportunity to make that stage and to realize the dream of going to the Olympic Games when there were so many sacrifices that were made to be the best in the sport.
Well, I admire your resilience. You did not give up there. And I know that you continued doing more challenging things and opening more doors for others. And that's how we would like to ask you a question about your time in the Calgary Fire Service. So you joined Calgary Fire Department in 1998. As the 3rd ever female firefighter. What do you remember most about stepping into that environment? How was things like that time?
What I remember the most was that I had so much to learn. And I had so many skills and experiences that I could bring forward to the job itself. But how shocked I was by the reception. Not that I wanted to be different, and certainly I'd always kept my head down and just trying to be a good person, a hard worker. But the fact that the fire department wasn't really welcoming of women, it of course is a very traditional career choice. I also didn't know that there weren't already a lot of women. It was just something that I wanted to do because I was very strong. I sometimes look back and wonder if I had some sort of addiction to adrenaline. And
seems like that.
This was going to be my next step to become a firefighter where I could use my talents. I already had 2 degrees. I had a Bachelor of Physical Education, a Bachelor of Science in Psychology, and I had a lot of leadership experience as well of course, as the sport experience and working as a team. And I thought that I had it all. And when I got to the fire department, to feel the hostility and the hatred was really new to me. I grew up where gender didn't matter. It just mattered if you were a good person, and it mattered if you were contributing everything that you could contribute, which I'd always done. It took me probably a good year to figure out that it's not about Deb. It's not about me being less than. It's about some people wanting to make me less than. And that was a bit of a tough lesson to learn. And it was a tough environment to work in because I wanted so badly to be successful. And yet the support just wasn't there.
Oh my God. I do remember from your speeches before the things that when you were explaining about how things were to work as a woman, always you have to prove that you're better or sometimes better than men. You cannot have your period. If there was a period drop of blood in the toilet, it would be a huge news and people will call other stations and stuff. That's crazy. And even when you became pregnant and you had your daughter, it was so hard for you that no one should see that, you're milking your breast and all these kind of things. But this is so normal human being things, but you could not do it in front of people, right? And can you tell me about the time, how you would even, shower or change or something, and how tough was there to do that?
I learned a lot about the difference between diversity and inclusion. And I believe that we had an organization, or we had a budding organization that was looking towards having increased diversity in the workforce. Although at that time, when I was hired, there were 3 women out of approximately 1,000 men. So we're looking at 0.3% women. And we didn't have many more people of color in the fire department. And I think that it's a goal to reflect the people who you serve. And the fire department wasn't able to say that we were reflective of Calgarians. That said, we have standards, and standards will not be dropped. There will not be an easier physical test for women. There will not be any type of quota hiring. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I was able to cross that line with my colleagues. And I guess cross that line, I don't mean by cross that line, I mean that I could be successful with the same requirements and stipulations as those imposed upon my colleagues. So back to your question of what it was like to be one of those first people in the Calgary Fire Department. The facilities weren't welcoming. The uniforms didn't fit. The protective gear didn't fit. And in retrospect...
And the shoes too. You told me that you had to put in something to fit in the... Oh my God.
So diversity is
very
one
symbolic
thing.
way, right?
Right.
That you wanted to fit in their shoes.
In their shoes,
And
yes.
rather than having your own shoes, their own space that fits you, right?
I guess, there is some symbolism there for sure. And when people say that you have big boots to fill, well, how do you fill them when your feet don't fill those boots?
Yes.
But certainly an inclusive environment is one that is welcoming, that you do have a sense of belonging, that you do have welcoming facilities, that you don't have to change your clothes underneath the stairs, that you don't have to find something to block the door so that you just have a few moments of privacy in the washroom.
There was no lock in the door?
There were no locks in the doors.
Oh my God.
Or that there was a shower designated where you could maintain some dignity. And that was important to me, to maintain dignity. In both having a uniform that wasn't sloppy, or being able to take care of the basic calls of nature. So certainly, maybe not the most inclusive, welcoming environment that I entered in the Calgary Fire Department, and yet I knew that I was there to do good things, to bring my compassion to customer service, to serve Calgarians in the best capacity that I could, and to realize that because there were only 2 women before me, it was also my responsibility to make sure that it was going to be easier for other women.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for what you have done, Deb. I truly mean that, because my next question is going to be about how you made such positive impact after your time. So you became Calgary's first women fire captain. What did that milestone mean to you at that time? And what do you think it meant for others watching you?
Thank you. A fire captain is the person on the fire truck who leads that particular crew and that particular fire truck. It's a true leadership position that we prepare for in the years leading up to that particular promotion. But the impact of being a captain is one where you have the ultimate say as you're directing your crew. And oftentimes in incidents where there's life and death and every moment matters, this is not a democracy. This is not when we talk together as a crew, which is the way I prefer to lead, of course, is to hear the voices of others. So that was heavy to know that you were the one making the calls. You were the one giving the orders. You were the one responsible for the impacts of that particular intervention. It also was super heavy in the way that you are ultimately responsible for the health and safety of your crew. And knowing that heaviness of being responsible for each and every person going home to their families at the end of the shift was heavy. And I don't know if most people realize that until you're actually in those shoes and responsible for the safe return of these crew members to their families after each shift. It is indeed a huge responsibility.
Wow, I cannot even imagine. Starting from, luge, which is like a bobsled, and you're like thrown out of a very high speed. And now you're jumping into the fire, not only for like the people you're saving, but also making sure you save your team. How did you being captain impacted other female fighters? Like, can you tell me about now how the scenario looks since you joined and what it looks like today at 2026?
Certainly, it was opening a door that hadn't been opened for women yet in the city of Calgary. And I believe that I demonstrated to the women who I was trying to support, those who were coming on behind me, that indeed it's possible. As a captain, you're also the one who's making the radio communications on behalf of your crew, informing Calgary 911 dispatch and the other crews who are on scene of the conditions of what you're dealing with and what your needs are. For that voice that was different to be going across the Calgary Fire Department airwaves, I believe not only was there huge scrutiny because everyone knew it was me. No one else had a woman's voice on the radio at that time in the captain's position. So there was a great responsibility, I think. Of course, with the scrutiny that I'd been enduring for the 16 years until that time, I knew that all eyes were on me. I knew that all ears were on me. And I needed to be good to continue proving not only to our internal audience, but our external audience that women can be firefighters and they can be good firefighters and they can be leaders. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what I recall from those days as well. It was important to many of our men that this not be a big deal. And I see in some fire departments, it's the first woman captain, it's the first woman chief, it's the first woman firefighter. It was kept very low key. And that was probably not a great way to self-promote, but firefighting is not about self-promotion. Firefighting is teamwork, and keeping a low profile on that huge milestone probably served me very well because it's not about Deb Bergeson. It's about the Calgary Fire Department, and it's about all of the wonderful things that are going to come in the future for our marginalized members. That is something that I didn't want to own at that time. It's just a door that was opened.
That was an amazing story to know. And I know that you say that there was a time when there was all female crew in a station, right? It's amazing. Do you know how many females are there right now in fire department in Calgary?
Yeah, I believe that we're up to 83,
Yay!
Which is great progress, and it brings me such joy. But then when we work the numbers and we're at approximately 4.7%, again, we came from 0 to 0.3 to 4.7. We've made great progress. It's certainly not reflective of the population we serve, and I don't know if we'd ever get there. But we have a long way to go in making it comfortable in fighting and a true career choice for women.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm still happy that we're at number 83, but hope there will be a time when we would not know the number,
That's
whether
right.
it's 83 or 84, maybe there will be hundreds. Now, my next question is, you have spent so much of your leadership work focused on inclusion and belonging. In simple terms, what does belonging actually look like in a fire service environment?
Yeah. Again, it's comfort and respect. When you walk into a crew, be it for the first time or again after your 4 days off of shift work, it's knowing that you belong there. It's knowing that people there care about you, people there trust you, and that you don't have to continue working harder or proving yourself or hiding the true you when you arrive at work. And there were many days for myself, for the women who came before me, and still I believe that the women of today, of those 83, they're still trailblazers. They're still proving that women are capable firefighters. Being included means that you get to show up for work and everything that you need to perform is going to be there. That sense of belonging, that you show up, you don't have to change yourself and work harder than others to be an equal member of that crew.
Good to know. Wow. Well, Deb, I know that your leadership is not just in the fire service, right? You've helped move important work forward around mentorship, safer systems, inclusive facilities, and better fitting equipment. Why do those details matter so much, creating a real workplace equity?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Raisa. It's certainly living what I lived in the fire department. I wanted to make things easier for others. I didn't want them to have the same struggles and the same self-doubts and the same thoughts of, this is wrong for me, I shouldn't be here, or the degradation of confidence. I wanted to make this possible for others. And when there are, if I could remove the barriers, then it would make it possible for others. In 2018, I joined the leadership team of the Calgary Fire Department in the position of Assistant Deputy Chief and was since that time promoted to Deputy Chief. So I've now spent 8 years around that table that gets to make those decisions and gets to make those purchases or those policies that are going to make it more comfortable for marginalized folks. So we spoke a little bit about being a captain of a fire station and being in charge of that crew and in charge of the fire station itself, where you can create an environment within the walls of a fire station. There are 43 fire stations in the city of Calgary and 4 different platoons. So there is impact and influence, but it's limited. Around the leadership table, that impact and influence can certainly be leveraged. And I've approached it with the lens of how can I make this easier and more welcoming and more inclusive to marginalized members. One of the positions that I had as a deputy chief was deputy chief of organizational effectiveness and engagement. And I was able to leverage a people-centric approach where I could bring my compassion to leadership, which in my mind was hugely evolutionary from the cold, demanding, very hierarchical, male, traditional leadership of the past in the fire service, which of course still exists around the world, but I got to soften it. I got to think about what it must feel to wear this uniform, this uncomfortable uniform, how I could make things better for others based on the challenges that I had, including wearing men's clothing, including ill-fitting personal protective equipment, including no policy or information about what if I want to be mom as well. And and those conversations, those how are you doing conversations, what can I do to help you, and share your ideas with me, because you know best how to deliver fire service to citizens of Calgary, and I need your ideas. So it was much more inclusive and compassionate and people-centric.
That's why we need more females in positions of power. Well, Deb, the next question is, fire service culture is built on trust, teamwork, you kept saying that, and performance under pressure. How do you balance tradition with the need for change? Because it has been so male dominant, right? And it still is in so many ways. So how do you do that? How do you bring in change?
The need for trust will never change. And that's an important thing about the fire service. We rely on one another for our lives. We go into some very, very dangerous situations, and we have to know that we can count on one another. I think that the fire service is also understanding that we rely on one another for our mental health. We rely on one another for our sense of belonging, all of those things that bring joy to a full and fruitful career. So there are some things that can't be changed. Trust is one of those things. How do I balance that with the traditional firefighting career? I believe that we have 83 very strong women who are helping to build that trust. They're paving the way, as I have tried my hardest to person, colleague by colleague by colleague, prove that you can trust me. You can trust me with your life. You can trust the fact that I'm physically capable, that I'm emotionally capable, that I understand incident command, that I understand my role, that I'm a good driver, that I'm a good tool operator. That's how you create trust, is by ensuring that you're good at what you do. And we have 83 women who are proving that each and every day.
That's amazing to know. Well, Deb, now my next question is for our young listeners, okay, and viewers. You've helped support programs that encourage women and girls to see themselves in emergency services. What would you say to a young woman who is interested in this career but unsure if she belongs? What
you
would
can
be
do
your
it.
advice?
You can do it. If you want to do it, you can do it. And gosh, I've spoken to hundreds of school groups, and I see those little bright faces looking at me. And for some of them, it would be the very first time that they thought of a firefighter not as a fireman. And every time that young people get to see a firefighter that is not looking like a traditional firefighter, it opens doors. We're opening doors to people of color. We're opening doors to women. We're opening doors to people who aren't that traditional, large, white, physically capable male. And yes, the physical capability must always be there. But the other definitions of traditional firefighter, I believe that we're proving we can cast our net a little bit wider, and we're successful to a certain point. Will we have some sort of exponential increase in the number of marginalized people within the fire department? I hope so. And I also hope that for fire services around the world, the 4.7% of women, and I would estimate maybe 4% or 5% of people of color within our organization, that is pretty much standard in the fire service. And I think we can do better. Mm-hmm. Now, to circle back to what I would tell young people, I spoke earlier about the internal audience, which would be my colleagues and those within the fire service. There's the external audience that has expectations of firefighters, and we're breaking down those expectations. I believe each and every time we're seen in the public, each and every time we disembark from the fire engine and what? There's a woman, or wow, there's a person of color stepping off of that fire engine. So it's not just the young girls and the young boys, but it's public. The public gets to see each time someone a little bit different, or as and I don't mean different in the sense that we're different and we have to think about it that way, but non-traditional steps out of a fire station or off of a fire truck. They also get to learn it's possible.
That's beautiful to hear that. And you know what, Deb, this is why you're here today, because we want public to see. We want not only those young girls, but their parents, their grandparents to see that, hey, I can send my daughter for, firefighting. Or there is another thing that I must say why we invited you here, because, at MCG Career College, our CEO herself, she's a female and a woman of color. She's the first woman of color to even start a diagnostic imaging center in Alberta. So being one of those first, it makes a lot of impact for the future generation, because we don't have those examples to look up to, those role models, and you are one of them. And another thing is 70% or more of our employees at our college are female. So when we keep it in mind that yes, we want to include everyone, like all the people, then definitely we can create an organization full of inclusion and empowerment. My last question now, and this is my most favorite question. Our podcast is called the Legacy Podcast, and we bring in people who build a legacy for not only themselves, their family members, but everyone around them. You shared about everything that you have done so far, but for future, like, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Oh, thank you. I deflect away from the Deb Bergeson legacy. I'm one of many strong women who want to make this a better world. So if I think about our legacy and the legacy of trailblazing, I've done it my way, and it's not necessarily the right way. I've been very cautious. I've been very respectful. I assess situations before I take that step forward in trying to challenge culture. There are others who can go into environments like this and simply be challenging. I've survived. I don't know if I've done it the right way. And these 83 strong women will all do it their way as well. But I hope, as I have blazed this trail, or participated in blazing this trail, that the trail's wider, that there's more space for acceptance, for not having to prove yourself each and every moment of each and every day. I guess specific to bringing non-traditional folks to the fire service, the acceptance, the better service that we're able to offer, because we now have a service that understands acceptance and compassion. And I see how our culture has evolved. And that makes my heart so happy to see that there is curiosity and compassion and a willingness to understand and to serve the person, not just the burning building, or not just the rolled over car, or not just that hazardous materials spill, but the person. And that's the legacy that we're creating by being trailblazers and by bringing our unique way of thinking to the service.
Wow, thank you so much, Deb. This ends our podcast here, but we cannot wait to hear more from you, hopefully in a future podcast or more guest speaking sessions. But thank you so much for everything you have done so far and you continue to do. You're always inspiring others, and I can see that. And I'm so lucky to have you here today. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. And certainly, if we could light the fire under any person who's trying to achieve their very best, that's what we want to see.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Deb. Well, for our viewers and listeners, if you were inspired by Deb Bergeson's story, then you can also reach out to her with more questions. You can find her on LinkedIn, and you can find her in many community events where she is lighting the fire of empowerment and inspiration. But for us, now we have to go. So please make sure you subscribe, like, share, and comment on our episode, and stay tuned with us for another very inspiring person. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.
MCG, making communities great.